In this video, we're going to introduce the cycle of selling. So this is a real solid strategy to save as much time as possible, reduce pressure, and avoid missing opportunities. Now, there's two approaches to any sale. There is approaching it with a structured way to take a customer from point A to point B, A being not knowing anything about our product, to B to purchasing our product. We can choose to follow a structure, or we can choose to freestyle or wing it. We all know that if we choose to freestyle and wing it, we can sometimes win, sometimes lose. But by following a strategy, a structure, is we can be the best of ourselves as quick as possible and do everything that we're supposed to in order that we don't lose any opportunities. So we're going to cover the cycle of selling, the steps in which you can take, and you'll learn quickly that this is the fastest way to gain a sale. We're going to go through each part of the cycle of selling individually, but to give you an overview is, first of all, there is the approach. The purpose of the approach is really just to start a dialogue. What comes just before the approach, however, is pre-approach. Now, what could that be? That's really anything that's going to help you make for a better approach. That might be profiling your customer. That might be taking 10 seconds to look your customer up and down and think, what might this person be about? What might this person be interested in? After the approach, we have a second approach. We're going to learn why a second approach is essential. The introduction is the most important part of the cycle of selling. We'll cover that. Buying atmosphere as well, exactly what that is. Demonstration, summary, price build-up, closing, objection handling, solidification, and aftercare, leading back to our next sale as well. So everything in this is very deliberate. It's something that is built to help us produce more sales without pressure in the fastest possible time.
The approach explained. The approach is not designed to sell your product. The approach is not designed to qualify the person in front of you as to whether they will buy your product or anything like that. The only goal of the approach is really to open up a conversation. So the strategy, therefore, is to sell yourself rather than selling anything else. That comes from being confident, that comes from smiling, that comes from approaching the customer slow and steady, that comes from standing side on to the customer. All these things to be an approachable, helpful person. An example of a bad approach we can probably all think of. We've all been in that retail store and somebody's approached us and said, "Can I help you with anything?" And what's the reaction to that question every single time? Yeah. It's, "No, I'm okay, thanks." The reason we say, "Are you looking at XYZ?" is because it avoids that answer of, "No, I'm okay, thanks." It allows the customer to open up and tell you, "Yes, I've been looking at this," or "No, I was actually looking at this," and it starts that dialogue. Remember, sell yourself before you sell anything else.
The second approach is one of the parts of the cycle of selling that really separates the poor and the okay salesperson from the elite sales professional. So here are some stats. 5% of all potential sales that are made without an approach. So that means that a customer has approached the salesperson asking for help. It's a very rare thing to happen, but when it does, the person is very, very close to buying anyway. So 25% of all sales that happen are made with an okay approach. You know, it hasn't blown the person away, but at least the dialogue has begun. Now, 70% of all potential sales require a second or third approach. Now, the misconception is that because a customer needs a second approach, they somehow are less willing or able to buy. This just isn't the case. We need to get away from this mindset that a second approach is a bad thing or being pushy. If we think about ourselves, if we think about how we are in any retail environment or any sales conversation, we are not on the forefront of being able to buy. We're not ready to do it. We need to start thinking about it. So that's what an approach is. So when we're in a retail environment, we would need someone to talk to us and bring us into the conversation for us to consider the purchase. This is the same with anybody. This is why I use the image of a baby walking as well. A baby doesn't think about falling down and getting back up as a mistake. It just thinks of it as part of the process. If my goal is to walk, I need to keep going. So if our goal is to build sales, then we need to speak to people. So if our first approach doesn't work, a second one is needed. So some more stats. 68% of salespeople will help a customer when the customer asks for help. That's amazing. That's 32% of people won't even help a customer when they're asking for help. That is deflecting it, and that is definitely not going to generate a sale. 48% of salespeople give one approach. 20% of salespeople give a second approach, and 12%, just 12%, go beyond that and give a second, third, or fourth approach. Now twin that, those two stats, 12% of salespeople give a second approach, yet 70% of all sales require a second or third approach. That means the 10% of us are collecting the majority of sales.
Now, the introduction is the most important part of the cycle of selling. Every other part of the cycle of selling can be missed out or messed up, and yet the customer still buys. The reason for that is the things that happen in the introduction. The introduction is all about building rapport and allowing the customer to see you as a person rather than just a salesperson, to build context and to build a picture in your mind of what that customer is all about and where they're coming from with all this. And then the last thing is to find a need, find that reason that customer's going to go ahead and purchase one rather than just think it sounds good or looks good. Now, first of all, building rapport is the first stage, and I really don't need to tell anybody how to do that. But what comes after that is known as CLASP, which is C-L-A-S-P. CLASP stands for current situation, like, adjust, signer, and painting a picture. So those things explained. First is current situation. You want to establish what point is the customer coming at this from. How much do they know about the industry, about the products, about the things you're talking about? What's their biases? Have they got any preconditioned thoughts on what you're about to talk about? Then comes like. So you want to figure out what the customer likes about what they currently have. If they have a 5.1 surround sound, they may very well like that they get an excellent sound from it. So you want to hold on to that. If a customer doesn't have any kind of sound bar or sound equipment at the moment, they may like that it doesn't take up space, that they have a lot of free space in their room. You want to keep close to that as best you can. Then comes A, and A stands for adjust. So what about their current situation do they want to change? What's compelled them to come into store? What's hiding behind adjust is their need, that one thing they want to action on. Then comes signer. Now, if it hasn't happened already, hopefully it never will, but what can happen is people like what you do, like the product that we're showing, and yet they come out with a line like, yeah, that's great, I just need to go ahead and speak to my wife, or I need to speak to my nephew, he's an expert at this kind of thing. Some person in this whole equation has an influence over the person you're speaking to, and yet isn't in front of you. Now, your job isn't to convince anybody that that person doesn't need to be part of the equation. Your job is to figure out if that person is in front of you or not. That's why we have the line, so are you in today to get ideas, or are you in today to get things organized? And the way you react to these two things is slightly different. If the customer says, no, I'm here to get this organized, it means I'm here to make decisions. If they say, well, yeah, I'm just getting ideas, and then I'll go do some research, or I'll go speak to the wife, we need to treat that slightly differently, take a little bit less time and say, okay, great, well, the best thing is to bring your wife in next time that suits you. P in CLASP stands for painting a picture. The purpose of this is to figure out if you really have figured out what that customer is all about, and you want to reiterate it back to them and then move things forward if you can. So it kind of means, okay, great, I think I understand what you're after. This is what I understand it to be, X, Y, Z. Whether it's you want a great sounding soundbar, you want something that isn't too bulky and discreet versus what you have now, you want to upgrade the clarity of TV sound, whatever that may be. Is this right, sir, madam? And then moving forward I'm going to go ahead and show you that, and we can see if it might be right for you. Last thing to think about in the introduction is it being the most important part of the cycle of selling. Please ensure that you stay on this part until you've got it right, until you have the answers you need to go ahead and show them the right thing. Don't be scared that you're wasting time by talking. The effectiveness of your introduction will allow your demo and your price build up and everything else to be ineffective or effective based on the quality of your intro. The buying atmosphere is one of the things that separate okay, good salespeople from exceptional sales consultants. A buying atmosphere does a couple of things. It takes the pressure off the person buying. It allows them to make the decision naturally in the way they should and want to. And it also creates an atmosphere where they feel they can buy. People love to buy, yet people hate to be sold. Images of that sleazy car salesman that won't leave you alone spring to mind when you think of salesperson. That's because you don't want to be sold. But buying is a different experience. The goal of this line is to allow the customer to understand they can buy if they choose to, yet they don't have to. It will open people up and it will allow everything you're about to do to have more impact. I can show you something that fits your situation. If you like it, we can order up today, and you may even be able to take it away today as well. Whatever you choose. However, if you don't think it's right for you, or if you're unsure, then don't feel like you have to get it. I didn't build it. I won't take offense. Just let me know either way. Now, the point of the demonstration is to prove what you already talked about in the introduction.
The simplest structure to follow when it comes to the demonstration is with ask, show, ask. Ask a question, show something that answers that question, and then ask another question to see if your point made sense.
Sir, so you were telling me that you struggle to hear people's voices, and that's really a frustrating part of watching television. Is that right? Yes, it is. Well, the Orbit Sound soundbars, what's incredible about them is they allow excellent clarity of voices, and you really pick out what people are saying above all the other background noise. Let me go ahead and show you that. Go ahead and show them. And then after that comes question. Your third question is designed to figure out whether that point hit home or not. So how did that sound? Pretty cool, right? Think that would improve your TV watching experience? Great.
Some of the do's and don'ts of the demonstration. One of the musts, one of the do's is show, don't tell. There's no benefit to describing something that you can show. So make the effort to show how it plugs in or how it works with XYZ rather than just explaining it. Another must is direct the listener to something they're supposed to listen for. So rather than just playing a movie trailer or a song, point out that the vocals are going to be particularly clear, or if it's an action movie, that there's going to be a great amount of impact without distortion, whatever it may be, but point the listener's ears in a direction. The third is tailoring the demonstration, make sure that what we're about to show, what we're showing, makes sense for the customer. Showing a massive action movie to a 90-year-old who just isn't interested in that, or showing a documentary to somebody in their early 30s who loves action movies, just makes no sense. So just tailor the demonstration as much as possible to the person you're speaking to. Some of the don'ts is talking over the demonstration. If we are asking the customer to listen to it, remember it's the first time they are listening to it. So be quiet while they're listening in. Another don't is turning it up to 100% volume. People will not listen to it at 100%, so we do not need to demonstrate it like that. Abusing the speaker doesn't prove anything. So turning it up to a relevant, listenable level is far better than 100%. The final don't is forgetting that the customer's never heard it before. Remember, we may have heard the speaker a bunch of times before, but the customer hasn't. We need to be as enthusiastic with this demonstration as we were the first time that we heard it. So the summary is a very important part of the cycle of selling, but equally easy to skip over. I'm going to assume that you understand the product and what has been said in the conversation, what you've looked at, and what's coming next. But remember, this is the first time that the customer has heard any of this information. So it's very easy to get lost. What we're about to ask the customer to do is start making a decision whether this is right or wrong. But we need to ensure that the customer is caught up on the conversation. So it's super important to take a minute just to summarize what we've looked at, what the issues were, why we looked at what we looked at, and where we're at with everything. Because we're about to start explaining the price and closing and answering the objections before asking for a decision. So summarize what you looked at and why.
The purpose of the price build-up is to explain to the customer how not only is the price great, but the price is great given the context of other products and other options. To give you an example, so I was in a John Lewis store in the TV section, and right next to the TV section is the lighting section. Now, in the lighting section, I saw 3 chandeliers hanging. Now, I don't know too much about chandeliers and what they're supposed to cost. So I asked the question, pointing to the middle one, how much does that cost? And he goes, well, that's £1,600. I go, okay. And then I pointed to the smaller one. I was like, well, how much is that one? He goes, well, that's £2,000. I go, right, okay. And then the bigger one? And he goes, well, that's £2,400. And then he was silent. Now, I left that no better off on how much chandeliers are supposed to cost or what made the difference between the 3. I didn't understand any better than when I asked him. What he failed to do is give me context. And so what I chose to do thereafter is decide, well, I spend £5 on light bulbs. £1,600 is a huge amount of money to spend on a light. Appreciating that there must be a difference, but I don't know what it is. How this relates to what we do is it's important to frame the price for the customer, helping them recognize how great the price really is. So the lower end of the price point is that £200 soundbar. Really less than that, you don't want to bother, is the idea. And then recognizing that audio companies that spend all day, all week on audio equipment, your Bose or your Sonos, things like that, they're really in the thousands. What we're been able to do is achieve that high quality that you'd expect from an audio company, that 12, 13, 1400 pounds, with a price point that's much, much closer to the TV manufacturer, allowing better sound for all. So price build up, again, it's all about putting that price in context. Now, a big misconception among poor salespeople and amateurs is that the close is to force somebody to buy. Images of Boiler Room or other sales movies where people are shouting down the phone, trying to convince people of something they don't really want. That's the misinterpretation of what close is. A close, is, in terms of what we do, is bringing someone to a decision. Recognizing that we like when people say yes, because that's how we get paid. Recognizing that we like when people say no, because they've made a decision and we can move on. But we hate maybes, because that means we just haven't quite done our job. So the job is to figure out where they land. The other part of the close as well is asking these questions so that if somebody is on board, is they're saying yes, 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 up until the point where they have to make a practical decision. Now, when it comes to the close, you want to be super relaxed. At this point, all the selling you were going to do has been done in the introduction and the demo. They're either on board at this point or not. It's your job to figure out what they are. So asking these questions will lead them down the road of yes or no. Now, what I want to ask you to do is recognize that when they're saying yes at this point, is they are on board with what we're doing and they like the unit, they want to go ahead and purchase it. If they're saying no, that's when we need to go back into the introduction and really figure out what point we missed and we didn't understand. But above all, closing is just part of the cycle and is nothing to be nervous about.
Ultimately, what we're trying to do is take a customer from point A to point B. Point A being knowing nothing or very little about our product. Point B being making a decision as to whether they're going to buy it or not, and hoping, in our case, that it's a yes. What objections are road signs on the journey to point B. Objections are the customer's way of telling you what their issues are, what their questions are, in order to move closer to the sale. So if we can think of objections like that, we can think of them in a positive light, and we won't get freaked out or nervous or upset when a customer gives us objections. We should be grateful. We'll be going, oh, great. If I can answer this question, I'm going to move the customer closer to a sale. So whatever our objections are, there are many that can come up, but ultimately our answers to the objections can follow a similar formula at a basic level. And this is known as feel, felt, found. And we want to start by agreeing with the customer, regardless whether we believe what they believe is the same. But we want to respect their ability to make a decision here. So yes, I understand how you feel. Other people have felt like that. However, what they found is, and we answer the objection from there. The purpose of this is agreeing with the customer, recognizing they're not stupid or wrong to think what they think. However, here's an alternative way to think about things. That's a polite, respectful way to change somebody's ideas about our product. What needs to come after all this, and what so often gets skipped, is re-demoing. Customers never change their mind. People don't change their mind. They make a new decision based on new information. So even if the customer is open to what we're talking about after we've answered the objection, they need something new to latch on to, so they can then give themselves an out and say, it's because of this. So if we've shown a movie up until this point and we're answering objections, to then show music and showing Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or anything like that, the customer can then go, well, that's a feature I didn't know about before. So that's a reason to say yes. So to summarize objection handling, it's a good thing. We can address it through feel, felt, found, and then we must read demo as well. Now we have an objection handling booklet that really covers all the objections that we've ever had about our products and exactly how to answer them. You can use your own wording, of course, but this is the best way that we've found in the history of Orbit Sound. So please check that out. Remember, objections are a good thing. Answered in the right way can take you closer to a sale.
The purpose of the solidification is to move a customer from a decision-making mindset into one of building rapport and getting excited about the unit they've already purchased. The decision has happened, now we're moving on. The reasons you ask the questions is to keep it lighthearted, but painting the picture of what will happen when they use it and what to do if there's any challenges. The reason we downplay any challenges is because, like all technology, there occasionally may be challenges. But the best person to help the customer with that is the Orbit Sound staff. The guys in the office that are trained heavily and know exactly what they're talking about. If we're selling our products in a John Lewis or a Currys or anything like that, their support staff are going to know a little bit about every one of the hundreds of products they have in store. But they're never going to be able to achieve the dedication and the knowledge that our own people have. So directing them to the office and the support number is the best thing.
Thank you for watching up until this point. As you can see from the cycle of selling, it is the most effective way to save time, save as much time as possible, reduce pressure by just taking a customer through a deliberate process and avoid missing opportunities. Thank you and good luck.